Sup Net, Kirk here for Comic Impact, and welcome to the Top 5, my Top 5 picks for June 24th. The comics released this past week, and some pretty cool stuff came out. Let's get right into it. So number 5 on the list this week is Kaptara by Zdarsky, released by Image Comics, issue number 3. It's finally found its voice. It's kind of coming to its own. The dialogue is funny, a little irreverent. It's got a little bit of Dungeons and Dragons, if you kind of like Dungeons and Dragons done comedy-wise. You kind of have to imagine it as Barbarella meets Flash Gordon. But imagine Flash Gordon isn't like a super hot jock. It's actually this scientist who doesn't have a whole lot of faith in himself. And other reasons why when I say it's coming to its own and found its voice, Zdarsky really is kind of having some social commentary fun with it. The comic kind of is his opinion on certain skewed views that are going on in society right now. And number 4 on the list this week is Mythic number 2 by Image Comics by Phil Hester. Why am I liking this? Pretty much because you have to imagine a group kind of like the Ghostbusters, and they're like a search and rescue and containment team. And they chase down like golems, totems, and giant monsters from history and lore and legend. And they don't mind saving the world as long as it happens on Sunday when they're getting paid, you know, time and a half to do it. Issue number 2 is actually a very quick read. Like I said, big action sequences. The reason I feel like they did this was to kind of move along the story and give you guys a better idea what this team is all about and what their job is and how they're going to handle it. Like I said, very fun, and man, thank you, Image. I got some pretty cool stuff this week that I was really needing because there was a lot of stuff by the big 2 that I had to wade through. And number 3 on the list by DC Comics, a really interesting pick for me this week because I thought they did some pretty cool creative stuff that's going to keep me going. How are they going to do this? Number 3, We Are Robin. This was a very interesting series. It's issue number 1. It spins out of some of the things that happened over at Snyder's Batman series with the Joker zombies and sending Gotham into, you know, basically chaos. And it follows this kid, Duke, who actually was saved by Batman in that series. It's a brave idea. The art's very cool and very contemporary. The cover is actually what got me in the first place. Yeah, sometimes I'm that guy who sees a really cool creative cover and I'm like, sure, what the heck. Things you need to know about this. There's no Robin. There's no Batman. And it seems like it's a team of kids who all kind of dress up in the same color palette as Robin, and they are kind of like a group that are kind of probably going to become like their own little vigilante street-level team. They're all high schoolers, and I'm guessing what they're doing is actually looking at Robin as like an ideal and a way to lead their lives and to help other people in Gotham City. It's the first issue. I'm not sure if it's actually going to be great, but the way they did this first issue was very interesting, and it's totally piqued my interest, so I'm going to check that series out for a little while. Do. I don't know why I went into A-Team right now. Da da da. Ba do do. Ba da da da. Do 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 do. And spinning out of Secret Wars, number 2 on the list from Marvel Comics, E is for Extinction. Why is this number 2 on the list this week? Let me tell you a little bit about what this is about. It's actually the Grant Morrison version of the X-Men, and it picks up from that story. And now it's the X-Men from that series being led by Magneto because it looks like Charles Xavier is dead from an apparent suicide. Writing duties by Burnham and art by Villalobos. Villalobos does a really good job of trying to recreate the same art from the Grant Morrison run. Also, Burnham has made a very cool creative decision in telling this story. Basically, Magneto, you fall right away into the Ian McKellen version from the X-Men films. You kind of start to hear that voice, that cadence. He's actually drawn a little bit that way. And also the dialogue is very Ian McKellen, and it's very Shakespearean how Magneto is leading the X-Men in this as far as like his little speeches and the way he interacts with all the other X-Men. Other cool things about this series. Remember the special class from Morrison's run and how they were kind of a joke, but Magneto was using them as like a backdoor way to take over the X-Men? Believe it or not, this series actually paints them in a really cool light. They're actually the new class. They are the up-and-coming X-Men. They are the new hot thing. Meanwhile, we start to focus on the old X-Men, who are that. They're feeling old. They're feeling outdated. They are last year's model. And it's a really fun, dichotic way to tell the story. And yeah, it's brave to go revisit something that Grant Morrison did. That's something that we're seeing with a lot of Secret Wars right now. All these different artists that are actually taking a shot at recreating art from past series, and all these writers who are taking someone else's idea and trying to build upon it and not necessarily make it their own, but kind of expand and do a big what if. So it's a very fun series. E for Extinction from Marvel Comics #1. Highly recommended this week. Really cool. P.S. Beak. We get Beak again. We get Beak being a pimp, and Beak's getting hit on by girls. And his girlfriend's a little jealous, but she still trusts them, and you get to see the cool family part of them with their babies from that series, and we've all kind of missed that. Yeah, Beak. We kind of really missed Beak. And before we get to #1, sadly, with all the good stuff that happens every week, I have to throw in one thing that wasn't quite the greatest thing in the world. So before we get to #1, we're going to get to the disappointment of the week. And unfortunately for me, that was Batgirl #41 by Stewart and Fletcher and Babs. Let me start with the positive. Stewart and Fletcher craft, once again, some really, really amazing character moments in the series. There's some really cool stuff that happens. Basically, we had to jump at the chance to take Commissioner Gordon, who's the new Batman, spoilers, and throw him in Batgirl series with his daughter Barbara. We had to see that team up at some point, and I'm really glad that they did go for that. Once again, Babs is totally the rock star comic book artist right now, and I'm not taking anything away. Her art pops, it's modern, it also is very whimsical, and, you know, like, kind of relates back to old school comic books, and I'm not taking anything away from that. Also not taking anything away from the writers, because, once again, really great character moments did happen in this series. Why is this a disappointment? Unfortunately, I do feel like this was a missed opportunity. This creative team is really great, and they work really well together, but there have been some missteps along the way while they're trying to find their own voice. This could have been a perfect opportunity to bring some of the darkness from Snyder's Batman series into the lighthearted Batgirl series, and see if they could have upped the ante a little bit, kind of, you know, infuse a little bit more darker adrenaline, and still do it their way as a great creative team, but put a little slightly darker spin on it, because sometimes Batgirl gets a little too happy. And, yeah, man, I don't know if it was like an editorial decision to make them do this, or if this was like, hey, I bet you we could really pull this off. But, unfortunately, that's the disappointment of the week. I am very sorry. And finally, my #1 pick of the week was actually a big surprise for me, because I got emotional and it came out of nowhere, and I was not expecting it from this series. Infinity Gauntlet #2, also spinning out of Secret Wars. Why was this my #1 pick of the week? Holy shit, and hold on. Story by Jerry Dugan, art by Dustin Weaver. Weaver also helps out with the story on this one. You know Duggan from Deadpool. He does, like, you know, Deadpool and Funny Deadpool and Psychotic Deadpool, and if that's your thing, that's great. I also did not expect such a great, cool, emotional story from him. Basically, we're still focusing on a family that's fighting through a basically just war-ravaged, desolate, dystopian version of their part of Battleworld from Secret Wars, and they lost their mother, and they're just fighting survival from these giant, huge bugs, and the mom shows up again. It turns out she's part of the Nova Corps. This is where the series gets so cool. It hits certain emotional beats very quickly, just within a few panels, and you go for this emotional ride along with the family as the mother finally returns to save them. They've lost a grandparent, they still have a dog with them, the dad lost an eye, and they're basically doing everything they can to survive as much as they can, as long as they can. Mom shows up, and she's still got other Nova Stars for the rest of the family. And I'm getting goosebumps, because it's so cool how, yeah, we had some losses, but guys, we've got to keep moving if we're going to survive. And I did not expect this from Infinity Gauntlet. This is so cool. Like I said, if you want some really great creative and deep storytelling that happens as quickly as possible, that you don't necessarily question because it happens so quickly, that the writing is spot on. Weaver's art definitely relates and translates all the emotion very quickly, very concisely, very sharp, despite the fact that everything is dirty and ruined around this family. And that's not even all of it. the best part is there's this other little thing about Thanos still looking for the rest of the Infinity Gems so he can complete his Infinity Gauntlet. Not to mention there's also the Guardians of the Galaxy, and they're somehow mixed up in it. And that's a whole other thing that the series hasn't even really touched on yet. It's like the backstory, and you know it's going to come into play in a second. But, man, just the emotional journey this family goes through. You don't even care about what's going on with Thanos yet, but you know it's going to fuck their shit up. Also, the dog gets a Nova Star and becomes a Nova member. It's pretty much the damn cutest thing you've ever seen in your entire life. So that was my number 1 of this week. Infinity Gauntlet number 2 by Marvel Comics. I think I just spit a little bit because that's how excited I was. I hope you guys got that. And yeah, that is my number 1. Go pick it up. Also, you can still get the first issue. I don't think a lot of people are really aware of this series. Go snatch it up now. And there you have it, the top 5 of this week. As always, please leave comments because I want to know where I got it right, where I got it wrong, what I'm reading, what you're reading, and technically what we all should be reading. Please like and subscribe. Go check out all the other videos and podcasts that Comic Impact has because let's admit it, I was scrolling through their YouTube channel the other day and it's a lot. So guys, thank you for sticking around. I will see you next week and yeah, go have fun. Go get those comics. Thanks guys. Alright, I think we did that.